Hey, what's up, guys? This is Sam, and I'll be doing the free video for May 21st, 2021. So, I just finished making the premium video for the folks in the Gold Room, and in those premium videos, we tend to do what I call a world tour. So, we start with the indices, all the indices here in the United States, then we look at world markets like the German DAX, the Japanese Nikkei, um, South Korea, China, things like that. We look at currencies, we look at commodities, we look at volatility via the VIX. So we do really kind of a deep dive in those premium videos, and considering I just finished making it, it's kind of fresh on my mind in terms of what I'm seeing out there. Going into next week is one of the sloppiest market setups that I've seen in a very long time. It's not necessarily bearish and it's not necessarily bullish. It's just extremely sloppy, meaning that things just aren't aligned. And that's okay. Sometimes that happens. This is the most unaligned that I've seen it personally, meaning that you have a lot of push and a lot of pull, and when you get push and pull, you end up going nowhere. So be aware of that going into next week, right? We got through OpEx or options expiration today, and next week starts the next month's OpEx, which is in June, which is also a quarterly expiration. So expect for the market to reveal its hand very quickly to you as soon as next week. But going into next week, I want to stay light on my feet. I want to stay nimble. I want to stay. I'm going into next week not flat, but with not huge position sizing and in just a very few select names. So, with that said, let me show you three stocks that I think look pretty good going in next week. But I do want to urge a little bit of caution, regardless of what you trade, until the indices firm up a little bit. So while I think the setups that we're going to look at here in this session are good, they none of that will matter if the indices don't behave well, right? So what I'm going to be planning on doing is kind of going a little slow on Monday, kind of getting a little bit more information, kind of the first day after OpEx, options expiration, and then from there start to either add longs in the stocks that we're going to review here in just a minute, or take off risk and maybe even put on some downside risk. So, with that said, let's cover these three stocks. First up is Google. I think we might have covered this one last week as well, but I'm going to keep it on the list because it's pretty solid in terms of the sector and in terms of the setup. So it's got one of the best setups in all of the FANG stocks. In my opinion, it's probably the best setup of all the FANGs. And it happens to be in the XLC, which is the communications ETF. And that one looked pretty good to me going into next week. It looks a lot better than things like XLK. So I kind of want to circumvent that and go with XLC more so. And XLC is pretty much Google. So pretty well aligned here. Good buy signal there. You have an 821 cross there. It is holding above support. So I think that if the markets trade even sideways, as long as they don't tank, and that's not a 0% probability, as long as they don't fall apart, then I think Google will remain pretty solid here. And the next level that I would like to target is 2340. After Google is going to be Shop. This is Shopify. I'm expecting next week that we should have to get leadership from tech stocks, and if we don't, that's somewhat of a problem. So that's the way that I'm approaching this one is we have to have leadership coming from these tech stocks. The main thing that I like here on Shop is that you have a sell signal here that printed near the highs, and then you have a comparable buy signal. So that's what I want to see. If you're going to go into a sell, I want to see it get canceled out by a buy. And we're seeing that. Not only that, but you have that low there, and then you have a higher low here. So on Shop in the short term, I'm looking for a retest up here to this 618 at 1310. Nice little slingshot squeeze here. I think it can be bought anywhere back to, this is going to seem crazy, but anywhere back to 1160 to about 1140 is a great buy zone. If you're aggressive, I think you can get in somewhere around 1194. I don't have any Shop right now. I did have some Shop short put spreads that were at 1115 that I did either Monday or last week, and those expired worthless today. But I am going to be looking for more to do here in Shop. and I'm looking for at least a test back above to 1310. Again, barring the market. So that's the main thing, is you have to have a decent market for any of this to work. If the market is, it doesn't have to be way up, just flat, then I think these things work. But again, just a little bit of caution out there in the event that the market, SPX and whatnot, does not cooperate. And then lastly, let's look at MXIM. So this is a semiconductor type company. Very strong pattern here with the potential to break out. And in fact, on the weekly time frame, we could argue that it already has. So you have this top here about around 98.5. Very cleanly defined range here. Giant trading range. But if you look at it on the weekly time frame, you see how it's got that low here and a higher low, flat top across 98.5. See how it closed above the high, and it did so on higher volume than any other volume around it. That's extremely strong. So this chart here is actually perfectly aligned for what I want to see. Again, though, none of it will matter if the market doesn't work, right? But these are some of the best setups that I see. Slingshot squeeze, active buy signal, higher low, strong weekly pattern, weekly squeeze, and it also has a 2-day squeeze. So that is the perfect recipe to take out a long-term resistance level, is to have this many squeezes and higher lows, and this one certainly does. If you like the name, but you don't recognize it or you want to trade something differently, then it's just a semiconductor. I think if this one works, all the semiconductors are going to work, but this one's just one of the cleanest ones that I see to talk about. So I'll be looking at all three of these going into next week. I don't have active positions in any of them right now. I was trading Google and Shop, but everything that I had expired today on both of those. So I'll be looking for fresh spots here in these three names. But again, just to close out the video, I do think that these are three of the best setups that I see in the market. But again, stay cautious out there, because this, like I told you at the beginning of the video, I just finished making the premium video for the folks in the gold room. And this was one of the sloppier overall markets that I see. And it doesn't really have a strong amount of leadership from any part of the market. Like technology is not leading, semiconductors aren't leading, home builders aren't leading. And so next week we have to then kind of put up or shut up, is really the case, right? It either has to put up some leadership, or it's going to pull back and start to fill some of the gaps to the downside. If that's the case, then just kind of remember these picks and keep them on the sideline. In the event that the market holds, trade sideways to up, I think any of the three plays that we looked at today are going to work very well. All right, guys, that's the video. I hope it was helpful. We'll see you for the next one. Cheers.
Without simpler trading, I could not have financial independence.
This is one of the best investments I ever made in my life.
It's helping me find consistency.
It's one of the things that won me